Golda, can you hear us? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear us. Okay.
Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Ron, we're good? Okay. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Scott Salmon. I am the Township Attorney for the Township of Teaneck. This is
I'm Michael Ash. I'm the redevelopment.
Is this thing on? My name is Michael Ash. I'm the redevelopment attorney and affordable housing attorney for the township. Welcome, everyone.
We also have on the Zoom Golda McMillan from Topology. She is the township's planner. I'm gonna kick it off to throw it off to her in a moment. First, I just want to say, obviously we're here as a community forum for the Crossroads American Legion Drive project. The purpose here is for you guys to ask questions about the project, for us to get you guys answers about this project. The township council is going to be meeting tomorrow in a special meeting to consider introducing an ordinance which would adopt a redevelopment plan for the project. If the council decides to introduce it, it would be heard. It would be another public hearing. I'd say two public hearings. So the first is that it will go to the planning board. March 9th.
March 9th.
March 9th.
Right.
So it'll go to the planning board on March 9th as part of a consistency review, and then it will come back before the township council at their March 16th meeting. And at that point, there will also be another opportunity for you to be heard, for you to provide comment on the project, as well as the other affordable housing projects that are being considered. We're setting.
Could you explain to the community with the process, the redevelopment plan, and what happens afterwards?
So once Scott finishes his introduction, we are going to have a presentation from the town's planner, Golda McMillan. She could not be here in person, but she is here on Zoom and has a presentation that I think will explain a lot of these details.
So the last thing I want to say before I kick it over to Golda is we're setting a rough curfew of about 9 p.m. so we're not here all night. I'm sure that there are obviously a lot of you. I'm sure you want to be heard. We're not setting any strict time limits on how long to have for you to ask questions. We just ask that you obviously please be respectful of the time of everyone else here, because like I said, there are obviously a lot of people here. I'm sure you guys all have questions. We want to make sure that you all have an opportunity to do so. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Golda for her presentation on the project and how it works.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Scott. Just some housekeeping. Who is controlling the presentation? Is it me on a shared screen, or is it
you?
I am. Okay, wait, no, I see. Do you guys see the cover page here?
Let's let it go. Yeah. If you can share your screen, do it from there. I think that'd probably be easier.
Okay, give me a second, then let me get things up. Is it showing?
Yeah, you go full screen. If you can go full screen, it may be easier for us to see it.
How does that look on your end?
Looks good.
Better, yeah.
Let me save it. Yep, okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Golda. I work for Topology. We're a land use firm out of Newark, New Jersey, and we are the redevelopment planners and the planning board planners as well as the affordable housing planners that put together the housing element last summer. Presenting the what I'm calling the CBD redevelopment plan. I believe Crossroads is probably more familiar name, or American Legion, but it is called the CBD redevelopment plan. What this presentation is going to cover is the overall planning framework, the public improvements, and the zone in this plan. And I think it's just kind of important illustration, some concepts. It's not the construction of the project, it's not the building design, it's the zoning framework. So I'm going to cover three things primarily here. First, I'm going to go over the background and the process of the plan. I'm going to talk about just kind of what a redevelopment plan and process is, a timeline of the development of this plan over time, and then I'm going to go over the next steps after I go over some of the details of what's in the plan. So I think this question already came up just a moment ago, but what a redevelopment plan does is it functions as a zoning ordinance under the local housing redevelopment law. What that does is it's going to permit different types of uses, densities, heights, bulk setbacks. But what a redevelopment does that zoning doesn't traditionally do is it goes an extra step actually in architectural standards that would be beyond a typical zoning ordinance to be regulated within this redevelopment plan. Again, you're going to see some images. They are not site plan approved. Details will be finalized in what would be follow-up steps should this be adopted through a public process, through a site plan before a planning board, through redevelopment agreements with council, and these are all typically noticed and would be very much posted online if they were to come. So just about the properties that are going to be rezoned. There's 3 districts that are going to be within this redevelopment plan. To the north of Cedar Lane, between Cedar Lane and Beverly Road. This is a district that's going to be called Cedar Lane North District, which I believe is the existing parking lot for the municipality. South of Cedar Lane to what is the west here, on the left would be the American Legion Drive West, which is also an existing parking lot today. And then to the east of American Legion Drive, which is where the existing Stop and Shop and some more surface parking lot is today. And so these are just kind of aerial images to orient everybody. So a timeline here. There might be more details in a bigger timeline. I'm just going to keep it really from a planning and local housing redevelopment law framework. This project first came around in 2020 when the governing body authorized something called a preliminary investigation, or also known as an area in need of redevelopment, an ANR, of just the properties that I identified as American Legion East and West. That recommendation was sent to the planning board, which conducted the study, and through its process and through the local housing redevelopment requirements, those areas were declared as area needs of redevelopment in March and April of 2021. And then during this process and subsequent to that, there was litigation filed by the Stop and Shop in 2021, May of 2021, which was ultimately resolved through a settlement agreement in 2023, I believe, which involved some details requiring parking relocation and some land swap. But that also allowed the redevelopment process to proceed, where in December of 2021, a second preliminary investigation, or as I hear people say in the audience, ANR, was conducted on that parcel to the north, the Cedar Lane North. So that study occurred through the local housing redevelopment process and met criteria where the planning board ultimately recommended those properties to be designated. So in total, there are two area need studies that are the framework that are the basis to this redevelopment plan. In September of that year, 2022, Crossroads was conditionally designated as a redeveloper through a resolution. In my practice in planning, I see this from time to time where there's conditional designations. It's not a redevelopment agreement in place, it's just a conditional designation. A redevelopment agreement would follow should this be adopted. March 2023 settlement agreement with Stop and Shop. I already referenced this slightly before, but that was ultimately agreed and settled. So in the summer of 2023, there were a series of public community meetings that spanned from 2023 to spring of 2024. And during this time, in 2024, the state legislature signed what was the impending new 10-year affordable housing settlement and Affordable Housing Fair Housing Act round that we know as the fourth round, where ultimately a housing element was adopted last summer, which identified this property as one of the contributing sites to help meet the township's affordable housing. Of which in December of 2025, there was an additional public community meeting at a council meeting where there was significant questions.
Golda, you're being you're garbled.
From the developer letter
If you could try
regarding
that last couple sentences again, that'd be great. You were garbled.
Should I repeat at a certain point or?
Yeah, go back to the legislature adopting the amended Fair Housing Act.
Sure. So the statewide affordable housing regulations were updated in 2024, which ultimately required not just Teaneck, but many, if not all the kind of suburban towns in New Jersey to do a housing element and fair share plan. Everybody had to face the same kind of deadlines of a June 2025 adoption. Subsequent to that, some settlements were then filed with this property, which essentially requires the implementing zoning by what is next week, 2 weeks from now, March 15th, 2026. So where we're at now is the redevelopment plan has been in draft form between 2025, 2026. That settlement was ultimately reached in 2026, a second settlement, different than the Stop and Shop one, but more around the affordable housing litigation requiring the zoning. And it brings us tonight, which is a fifth community meeting and what is a planned introduction. So a couple of plan overview points and public benefits. These, I would say this, a lot of this regulation, all this regulation is identified in the plan. It's written, it's not speculative. It's identified in the plan, and that's something that the power of redevelopment plans can do that's beyond your traditional zoning. So what this plan will require is some stormwater infrastructure major updates, which would also include off-site drainage improvements. This would all be at the cost of the developer as written within this plan. It would require, extensive engineering analysis, design, and construction of the capacity improvements within this plan and require mandated NJDEP oversight. Another significant public benefit that is required in this plan is the affordable housing component. So there's two affordable housing settlements around this plan. One is with our settlement with Fair Share Housing Center, and then the other is with the developer, all tied to essentially the same point, which is adoption of the zoning by March 15th, 2026 deadline per the Fair Housing Regulation. What this plan does is it actually satisfies 58% of our settlement requirement in total. There is a requirement for 48 low moderate income units here. And the way the Fair Housing Act was rewritten in this new affordable housing round is they offer these bonus incentive credits. They want to see things like redevelopment of commercial lots. They want to see things like placing affordable housing in a transit-oriented area. So because of the location and the land that's associated with these parcels, it actually unlocks 24 bonus credits under their methodology. So with 48 low moderate income units and 24 bonus credits, this is actually a 72 credit worthy project in our affordable housing plan. Other public benefits that are required within this plan is a minimum of 450 public parking spaces, since this is going over the municipal lot today. And with the parking infrastructure, the idea is to focalize that commercial activity in that Cedar Lane business district. Also, requirement are extensive. I went over this already, but circulation mobility, there will be traffic impact studies. There already are some. I believe there are more to probably be studied and go over once this especially gets to the site plan, but during the redevelopment agreement process. There will be requirements for circulation improvements, roadway upgrades, and pedestrian safety enhancements. Other public benefits that are written into this plan is open space.
Goldie, you're breaking up again.
Areas. One would be by the
Hold on.
gamers. Sorry.
Goldie, if you can hear me.
If I turn off my camera,
Maybe try turning that off. But so you were saying with the open space, that's where you got cut off.
yeah, let me. I'm not even sure how to turn off the camera. Okay, I apologize for turning my camera off. I think it might help with my bandwidth a little better. Shout out again if I'm having like connectivity issues. So this plan will require a open space element to it in two locations. The farmers market, and when the farmers market is not in session, it would just be a plaza area, but that would be located along Garrison Ave between the Cedar Lane and Beverly area. And then additional open space would be required in one of the districts, not the one with the Stop and Shop, but the other district to the west of American Legion would require an open space area. So it's not aspirational. It's not just in the concept. It's actually written into the plan as a requirement. Also required within the plan is a community public space aspect within the building that's the North District, which is the Beverly and Cedar Lane, the North area. The plan requires 1,000 square foot plus public indoor community space, which would have exterior access so that it's not, just exclusive to that building only. It would be exterior access to the public and accessible for public community use. So the plan goes over a very detailed requirement of architectural, streetscape, and urban design standards, way beyond what you could achieve in a traditional zoning ordinance. This is what's going to regulate things like your building materials, your facade articulation, the way the building is going to look, lighting, landscaping, screening of utilities, certain pedestrian infrastructures, things to really ensure that this is constructed with a really high quality product that is meets consistency with best practices in construction and not just zoned to a bulk, but also massed in a way so that this can visually be much more appealing, something that is very hard to do in traditional zoning. Other public benefits that are required within this plan is a commercial connectivity, and that is specifically the Stop and Shop connection. They are a party. They have reviewed this plan extensively. But what this plan does is it really is a focal on the Cedar Lane Business District and including that Stop and Shop supermarket area so that it's a viable commercial area to help support the businesses, the residential density to be located as well in that regard. And I wouldn't say this is a written public benefit in the plan. I would just say this last one is just a good planning practice that when you have density and mixed use, you're bringing the foot traffic to these businesses. It brings out, local business activity and really supports that. So again, these are illustrations plan would be a future phase, but this is essentially the massing and a site plan conceptual of the project. Each district would be regulated with different setbacks, coverages, heights, densities, and regulated accordingly. So this would be your Cedar Lane North District regulations. The permitted uses there would remain multifamily, the public community space, the open spaces, the garage. And then what these arrows are pointing to is there is a existing use. I believe it's a nonprofit within one of the buildings in the American Legion Drive parcels to the south, and they would be relocated to the project to the north. There is no permitted retail or commercial. This would be a multifamily mixed with the public parking and the community areas. This is a frontage design. So what you're looking at, let me actually go back a slide. So if you see there's 3 parcels in between that kind of breaks up 2 frontages. So what you're looking at is on the top here would be the elevation that is essentially where the parking lot closer to the church is. And that the bottom elevation is the structured parking garage. That is the area closer to Garrison Ave on Beverly. So the next
on the corner of Windsor and Beverly.
Mhm. So the next district here, this is the one with the Stop and Shop. These would be the bulk standards and the density standards. And the uses here would include the existing Stop and Shop to remain, the public open space area, what is the multifamily dwelling, which would be in the rear, if you can see on this one. And then lastly, which would just be multifamily only with the public open space. And these would be the bulk standards for that district. So I said this earlier, something that redevelopment plans do beyond traditional is quite extensive regulation around certain streetscape, landscaping, lighting, stormwater utility. All these things are further regulated into this plan. So when I say regulated, I don't really mean optional. If you deviate from, any of these standards, it requires a variance before a planning board, and that in itself would be its own, testimonial proof to achieve. So there is regulatory framework. It's not policy. It's law when it's an ordinance, and that's what a redevelopment plan does. It's an ordinance of the land use. So the next steps, we're here tonight having this forum, and this week, tomorrow actually, would be the introduction at a special meeting of this redevelopment plan, followed by a mandatory consistency review of the master plan on March 9th, Monday, where, I'm sorry, this says March 10th, but let me correct the record. March 16th would be the second reading at a public hearing of the redevelopment plan. And then thereafter, that's the municipality's schedule. Thereafter, with the redevelopment agreement and potential site plan application, should this be approved, that's all TBD. But I would say up to March 16th, that's where it brings the municipality up to. The process with redevelopment agreements would probably require, I would expect negotiations and further analysis as needed. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Golda.
Thanks, Golda.
Okay, so. All right, at this point, if anyone wants to come ask questions, come on up. Oh, that was gonna ask you.
Ron, can we have the presentation back up? Yeah, Golda's going to drop off, and then we'll be able to go through the presentation here.
You don't have it? What? You don't have it? Oh, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it up on your.
Yeah, and then we can go through it.
I'm the going Councilman Patrick McHale. I'm also a former mayor. I have a concern about the drainage. I understand the water's going down Fifth Avenue onto the railroad tracks. I'm worried about that ending up in Pagoda, because right now we have a problem at River and Elm. Anytime we have a storm, you get sometimes 4 feet of water down there, and I'm concerned about the water going down there. I have pictures of, this is what it looks like after a major storm. And we certainly don't need this in Pagoda anymore.
Do you have a specific question for us, or?
Yeah, exactly what is the plans?
We don't have exact plans at this time.
Well, then,
Hold on. Okay. If we're going to have a respectful exchange of ideas, then we'll address questions. But your reactions don't facilitate an exchange of ideas. What this document proposes is zoning for a project that satisfies the township's affordable housing obligation. 58%
I
of
have
it.
no problem with that.
Right.
Right.
As part of the public benefits that this project will provide, there is a neighborhood in Teaneck that floods routinely
Right.
on Bell Avenue. The developer is committing to drainage improvements so that neighborhood doesn't flood anymore. There have been concepts proposed that would allow for additional drainage capacity to flow with the existing storm sewer system. So it's my understanding that there is not, there's existing township infrastructure, and it may even be shared with Pagoda's infrastructure, that there is a drainage swale parallel to the rail right of way. It's not the same as the drainage is on the tracks.
Right.
There's an existing swale,
Right.
right? And so can I ask you, does Pagoda's drainage also use that swale?
Yes, they do, but that's the problem. That's the problem. We don't need any more water down there.
Okay. Well, right now, the only thing that's proposed is the developer is committing to drainage improvements to alleviate flooding in a Teaneck neighborhood. We asked an engineering firm, Colliers, to do an independent review of what was proposed. And that engineer, the first question she had for me was, can you share the construction plans with me? I said, we don't have construction plans, because right now we're just talking about a concept to alleviate flooding. It has not been engineered or designed. And if it requires other things down system, that can be considered at the construction and design phase, which is not tonight.
I asked one thing, and you can just keep us in mind and keep us up to date.
No one wants to.
Now, right now, I'm trying to get Congressman Gottheimer to help us with the flooding down there. Now, the last thing we need is more water down there.
And if you're addressing a regional problem that affects multiple municipalities, then yeah, there should be a coordinated effort.
Okay, that's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I leave these,
Yeah, we'll take them. Thank you.
Well, that's all. Thank you.
We'll mark them and add them to the record.
Yeah, Ron.
Good evening, Michael, and good evening, Scott.
Good
Hope you're
evening.
doing well. I have a number of questions, so you're going to have to bear with me about this redevelopment plan. One, why has there not been a utility study that is required by the settlement agreement? Why has there not been, let me ask all the questions.
I was going to ask you if you wanted us to address the
No,
question individually
please
or
wait.
at
Yeah,
the
you
end.
can
Okay.
wait until all the questions. You can answer all the questions. The first one is, why has there not been a utility study done as required by the settlement agreement to protect the people of Teaneck? Why has there not been a noise impact study done as required by the settlement agreement? We've had 3, now maybe 4 years since this plan came into being, and why have we not done these protection studies for the public, even up to the present time when we are trying to rush this through? 3, a council member promised in a prior hearing a school impact study. That has not been done. And why has it not been done? It's been months since that was promised to the public by a member of this council. Now, I want to speak about the flood remediation plan or lack thereof. In a zoning subcommittee meeting at the end of November in this very chamber, 2 of the council members, one who was a mayor and one who was a deputy mayor, promised the audience at that point that they would not vote to approve a redevelopment plan for Crossroads unless there was a workable, sufficient, and doable flood remediation plan to protect the residents of Beverly Road and Bell Avenue. They said those words, a workable and doable flood remediation plan. The deputy mayor indicated that day that there had been several ideas floated by the developer who was there that night, and that those ideas were not sufficient and acceptable to her, and that in the current state, she would not vote for this redevelopment plan. It was after that time that the developer on December 9th presented, again, right here in this chambers with an engineer, a proposal for a flood remediation plan that had numerous questions behind it. One, and which has been raised by Paula Rogovin over and over, where is this parallel piping system going to dump the floodwaters that are currently at Beverly Road and Bell Avenue? And the answer was somewhere to the south of the project in a swale by gave them the wrong name of the railroad company. What was the name that they gave, Paul? Conrail. Conrail. They didn't even know the name of the railroad company that they were going to dump water on top of. They had apparently been looking at 10 or 15-year-old maps, didn't bother to look at the current maps. They said it was going to be dumped out at a swale by the tracks for Conrail. It's actually CSX. But no one knew where this swale was supposed to be. A swale is an open land with brush and trees that will absorb the water. Nobody knew where that was. We've been looking for it. Paul and I have been looking for it for months now. The only way to do it is to have a pipe dumping out from the berm above the railroad tracks right onto the railroad tracks. So that plan was submitted on December 9th. There was no indication who was going to pay for it or whether the developer was going to pay for it or the town was going to pay for it. Then we got to January, I guess in February also, where a redevelopment plan was submitted at the last council meeting, which did not have any redevelopment plan attached to it. And the redevelopment plan, which is to be voted on tomorrow night for introduction, does not have a redevelopment plan attached to it. What happened to this redevelopment plan that the developer had proposed back in December? Somebody figured out it's not workable. It cannot happen. It's too expensive and it's not workable. So that plan is not part of the redevelopment plan. In fact, there is no remediation plan attached to this redevelopment plan that the council is supposed to introduce tomorrow night. And the question is, why is there no flood remediation plan in this redevelopment plan promised by council members to this public? Why is it not there? What is there, I will tell the public because I've read through it very carefully, is some ideas, some goals that the flood remediation should encompass, should result in. And there are two goals: a 15% increase in the flow of the floodwaters, or a remediation such that the water does not come over the curbs at Beverly Road and Bell Avenue. But three is an or. If the developer can't accomplish either one of those two goals, they can present any amount of remediation of the flooding to the town engineer, and if the town engineer is okay with it, that's what you get. That's not what is promised by this council. The council promised flood remediation so that these people living in the area would not have to put up with flooding anymore. So even in this the plan that's on the agenda for tomorrow night, we leave it up to the town engineer. If he wants to let Crossroads out from under its obligation, anything will do. Now, I noticed that today, better late than never, the town put on its website the town's independent review of the flood remediation plan. And in this, we basically reading it through today, we understand why the developer's remediation plan was not included in the redevelopment plan. This has a couple of things. I'm just going to read it, and then you can answer the question why this plan has not been included in the redevelopment plan. Colliers, this is dated today, March 3rd, said the proposed offsite drain, and it's reviewing the developer's plan. Quote, the proposed offsite drainage improvements will mitigate flooding by increasing conveyance capacity through a constrained portion of the existing stormwater system. As the proposal is preliminary in nature, additional engineering detail, field verification, and regulatory documentation are required to confirm feasibility, constructability, and compliance with applicable regulations. And it cites as several problems that have not been answered by this plan, whether there will that it will not result in any negative downstream impacts. That has not been shown and has yet to be shown by any plan, and it is not sufficient. And in conclusion, the last thing the town engineer says, additional engineering detail, field verification, and regulatory documentation are required to confirm that the proposed parallel storm sewer network is constructible and hydraulically effective. This is the town's own engineer saying this is not a plan that is ready yet to be done. We need a lot more information, a lot more assurances that people downstream from where this is going to be dumped are not going to have the same flooding that we had. And we also need to know whether this is going to be mandated. So far, it's not mandated in the redevelopment agreement that I can see. What's mandated is payment of studies to try to do this, but not the actual remediation is not mandated, and it's not mandated at the sole cost of the developer. So there's every possibility that the town may be asked to pay for this, what looks to be a very expensive remediation. So if you can answer those questions, I would appreciate it.
Sure, thank you. Okay, a couple of things. So I'll start with the first thing. You mentioned a utility study, and you're asking why it's not been done. I'm not sure. Okay, so in the 2023, the settlement agreement with Crossroads, one of the and Stop and Shop, one of the requirements is that Crossroads is required its sole cost and expense to prepare a utility study that has to do with water, connections to water, electric, natural gas, telephone, video, stormwater management, and then design those utilities in a way that doesn't impact the supermarket or disrupt its operations. Under that settlement agreement, they were not required to do those studies until they were preparing and submitting to the planning board their site plan application. The reason for that being is until they get to that point, the project itself has not been engineered, it has not been designed. So you can't really do a utility study until you actually have more than just a sketch up in CAD or whatever this is, until you actually have all the details necessary to actually construct the building. At this point, because right now what we're doing is the zoning, we're not doing all the fine details of it. That comes at a later stage. You can't really do a utility study until you get to that point. So that's why under the agreement, they're not required to do it until then. So there is no requirement that they do it now, because they frankly can't do it now. It's just not possible for them to do it now before this has been designed, before they actually know what the zoning is going to be. You can't design something until you know what the zoning is going to be. The second question was about the noise impact study. This is very similar, and same with the school study as we have in the 2026 settlement agreement, the one that the council just agreed to a couple weeks ago, a month ago now at this point or so. It says January. I'll read it here. The township and Crossroads shall negotiate a redevelopment agreement in good faith to implement the redevelopment plan. During the negotiations of the redevelopment agreement, the township shall conduct its own traffic and transportation study for the project in cooperation with NJ Transit in Bergen County. 2, community and environmental impact study for the project, including analysis of school impacts. And 3, stormwater flood mitigation study for the project. So the way this is set up is, again, for the same reasons as before, is as part of the negotiation of the redevelopment agreement is when we're going to be doing the noise impact study, the school study. We can't really do that until we know exactly what their zoning is going to be. Township doesn't want to spend I'll call it a ton of taxpayer money gaming out all the different hypotheticals when we can simply wait a few months and know exactly what it is that could be built there, and then we do the study based on those details. Otherwise, we'd be doing studies on any possible situation of what could potentially happen instead of looking at the situation that specifically does.
Why not put it into the redevelopment plan right now?
Because as I just said, it's not possible to do that without spending a massive amount of tax. So we could do it now in the sense of we could do all these studies, game out a million different hypotheticals. It's going to cost you millions of dollars. I don't say millions of dollars. It will cost you significant amounts of money to have professionals come up with all the potential ideas of what could possibly happen. Or we could wait until the zoning is passed, and then we know exactly what it's going to happen. And at that point, there's still a redevelopment agreement to finish negotiating, to adopt. It has to go to site plan approval. So there are lots of steps of things that happen after that. This is just, again, as we said before, this is the zoning. The nitty-gritty details of what happens and the studies that are going to happen based on that come at the next step. It's just a multi-step process, because for a project this large, really any project anywhere near the size, you can't just do it all in advance without just spending tons and tons of taxpayer money. So those things will come, as it says clearly in both settlement agreements. It's just not, this is just a different part of the process.
And postpone the redevelopment plan until you have a redevelopment agreement.
Okay.
That's not how the process works. The redevelopment process works by first the designation, which has been done. The next step is the redevelopment plan, which in most circumstances, for most projects anywhere in New Jersey, is a set of zoning criteria. This plan goes into significantly more detail than the typical redevelopment plan, because you have asked for things like a drainage mitigation plan, a farmer's market, community space, public plazas, our affordable housing, fourth round 58% compliance is all in this plan. This plan has a lot more detail than a typical zoning redevelopment plan. And it's only after a plan is adopted that you then negotiate a redevelopment agreement, which is with the one entity who is the designated redeveloper, who will then agree to not zoning commitments, but financial commitments. Financial commitments are not part of a redevelopment plan, which is one-sided. This is the township's document. This is the township legislating a set of requirements, zoning and otherwise. But once we start negotiating a redevelopment agreement, which if this plan passes, that will be the next step. Now the redeveloper is negotiating with the township for performance obligations, first and foremost, to do every single thing, every last item in this plan they are agreeing to do. And then there are the financial commitments. Then they will agree to spend money on other things, other studies, everything that you just outlined, everything you just listed. They are going to do those things. They're going to pay for those things. They're going to agree to fully design, fully engineer the flood mitigation plan to our satisfaction, and they're going to pay for it, and they're going to agree to do those things in the redevelopment agreement. But that does not come until after the plan is adopted and we know that this will be a project. I understand the timelines here are tight to adopt this plan. These are not the township's timeline. This is not Teaneck's own arbitrary deadline. This is a deadline imposed by the state. And in the state's infinite wisdom in creating this new legislation that every town has to comply with, no one bothered to look at a calendar and figure out that March 15th falls on a Sunday. That's the deadline to finish the zoning. So we're going to say that because that's not a business day, we get the benefit of the 16th. So we have dragged this out to the last possible legal day to adopt this and approve these plans before the township loses its immunity from builder's remedy lawsuits. All the things, the list of studies, all the obligations, they will be in the redevelopment agreement.
Okay, can I?
The one other thing.
Contemporaneous
one thing
with.
I want to address that Ron brought up is he asked about the flood remediation.
I did too.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to address that. So that's correct. We were asked to have, I'm sorry, let me back up. The developer has proposed a concept of a way to remediate the stormwater issues. The township had its own independent engineer review that proposal, Colliers, which I know you, Ron, you read from some of their report. And what they essentially said in there is that conceptually, the proposal makes sense. That conceptually it works and it will reduce the flooding. But because it's not fully engineered, they need to see a lot of details that just don't come until we get closer to site plan approval. That's where we'll see if it will do what it says it's going to do. And if it doesn't do what it says it's going to do, part of the redevelopment plan here, and thanks Mike for opening this up, is part of what it does, which I think Ron you read as well, is it commits the developer to doing certain things as part of that. They have to have 10 to 15% improvement of the flood rate. They have to limit the height of any future flooding below the curb line. And if it can't be done, then they have to do something that will satisfy the township engineer. So no matter what, even if this specific plan doesn't work out, when they get to actually engineering it, doesn't work out for whatever reason, it's not feasible, they got to go back to the developer has to go back to the drawing board. They got to come up with something else that does do it. And if that idea doesn't work, then they got to go back again and they got to find something else that works. They have to do it until it meets the satisfaction of the township engineer. So if this specific project if this specific proposal for the flood remediation doesn't work out, they got to come up with something else.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things that this commits them to. It does commit them to doing it at their cost and expense.
And this language this is our language. This is the language we prepared with stakeholders on behalf of the township. And we said, this is what you are going to agree to, developer. And this is what they agreed to. It is mandatory. It is not a final design. It is not a final engineered plan ready for construction. That costs thousands and thousands of dollars, which they're not going to commit to doing that design now before their zoning. They will commit to doing it as part of a redevelopment agreement process when the entire financial picture of this project is going to be negotiated, it is a firm commitment. And the other thing is, a lot of the, well, I will say most of the data on the flooding capacity, on the rainfall modeling, comes from the township's engineer. And the ideas of how to alleviate the flooding are also the ideas of the township's engineer. This isn't like trying to put a man on Mars. Flooding is something, stormwater, sewers, that's something every town has to address in New Jersey. Every town has their own system. And there are only certain tools in that toolbox to do it. So they're not proposing something unique and novel that is only going to impact Teaneck. This is a design and a concept that works in a lot of different places. And there's no scenario where anyone will affirmatively sign off on a plan that is going to just shift harm down system. No one's going to do that. No one is going to agree to a plan that says, you know what, we'll fix the flooding here, but we're going to make it worse there. And we're going to somehow make this dangerous for a freight rail line. That's not something anyone who works for the township, who would vote on something on behalf of the township, that's not something anyone would do. That makes no sense.
Can I speak to that?
He said we're not going to sign off on something that floods CSX, the CSX rail line. If for whatever reason this proposal is going to would do that, no one's going to sign off on that.
Right.
Certainly the developer is not going to propose that. We're not, and we certainly wouldn't agree to it.
Right. I'm a lawyer. I'm not an engineer. But what I do understand is the existing stormwater system, what's there right now, has a drainage that flows into this swale, where it is an area parallel to the freight rail right of way. I don't know. I can't point to a map and say it's here, but our township engineer knows that.
And the township engineer has signed off on the proposal as well. They agree that the proposal makes
Right.
sense, as does this independent. So now we have two independent. They are signing off on the concept, and again, if the details of that don't come to fruition, then they'll go back to the drawing board and come up with something else.
Okay.
And again, it's also my understanding as an attorney and not an engineer that we are experiencing more and more and stronger rain events. But whether we build this project or not has no impact on those rain events. But if we do add this drainage infrastructure that is conceptually proposed, it will take the same amount of rainfall and drain it faster, which alleviates flooding upstream. It doesn't create more water. And in fact, what the Collier's independent engineer asked me is, do you have the stormwater plan or the project in that area? And we don't have that yet because it's nothing but a concept. But once that is designed, the building itself is going to have drainage infrastructure as part of the building. So there's going to be less water that drains through the system in the future when you have a building that has its own stormwater system versus an asphalt parking lot. And I'm done.
Okay, thank you. So let me speak to that because for those of you who don't know me, I'm Phil Yucht and I live on Bell Avenue, and I am a victim of flooding in Teaneck. Significant flooding back in 2021 during the Ida storm, but flooding for about the 47 years that I've been living there, street flooding, front lawn flooding, sometimes going into our basements a little bit. Most of us have French drains and so forth. So I understand, I've been on this for a long time, and I understand the whole flooding situation and the drainage situation. So let me just explain this so the public understands, at least from a resident's view. The drainage system that converges on Bell Avenue from everywhere, on the surface and underground, everywhere, that any road that surrounds Bell Avenue, we're at the bottom of a bowl, and every street that surrounds us slants down towards my block. And that's why we get all that water. Also, 175 acres of town are in the drainage system that was probably produced about 100 years ago. So it's inadequate in today's world. That drainage system comes to a main drain on my block on Bell Avenue, all the 12-inch pipes that come down from the other side of Route 4 and so forth come to Bell Avenue, and from there it goes under the parking lot on Beverly Road, under Cedar Lane, down American Legion Drive, all the way, I think, to Terhune Street, which is south of the Stop and Shop lot, and it makes a turn there, and it empties into the swale on the Conrail on the CSX tracks. That's been the case ever since this was built. So that's where the water goes. Now, you should know, and you can find it on the township website under Housing and Redevelopment. There are preliminary studies that have been done, and there's a proposal of a concept of alleviating the drainage, which would be to put parallel pipes into the system to go under Cedar Lane and down American Legion Drive. Now, what's my concern? That will help my neighborhood. What I'm concerned about is I read all the studies, and I read the new studies. I'm concerned about, I certainly want to have my flooding remediated, but I don't want my flooding problem to affect another part of town. And that concept ends at the south end of the parking lot of Stop and Shop. That's where it ends. I don't know if you realize that when you read it. It continues on, but what you're doing is you're increasing the flow, and then you're narrowing it down to a pipe again. That's going because you're not putting pipes in all the way to the swale. The proposal is to put pipes up to the southern border of the Stop and Shop lot. That's how I read it. That's what I understand. Then it's got to go into the existing system to go down to the Conrail, to the CSX tracks. So I'm just putting this on the record that should be really seriously considered if in fact this redevelopment plan is approved. Traffic. I also read the preliminary traffic study that's on the website and the Collier's review. The intersection of Garrison and Beverly, it has a level of service of F. F is F. What does F stand for? F stands for failure. It is the lowest rating of any intersection. We know that. We live there. We see it every day. I don't understand how anybody possibly can change that rating from an F because the streets are only so wide. You can put a four-way stop sign there. It's just going to back traffic up more. That is the most accident-prone intersection on Garrison Avenue. There are accidents there quite frequently. I think that we have to be very, very careful about adding more vehicles to the neighborhood and keeping. It's going to stay an F. It can only be an F. If it's an F, it's an F. We're going to have more cars. How could it get to be an E or a D or a C? It's impossible. So I'm just asking, what can be done to ensure that F becomes an A? Thank you.
So I will just say in response to that, that is one of the things that Collier's looked at as part of our independent study of this. And I'll just read from their analysis here. This intersection currently operates at a level of service F during the afternoon peak hour under existing conditions. The study indicates that site-generated traffic represents approximately 14% of the total intersection volume and suggests that all-way stop control projected to improve, I think this missing word, is projected to improve operations to level of service of D. And so basically what they're suggesting is that, obviously D is not a great score, right? There's no question about it. But their point is that the level of service will improve by changing the what's the word?
It's the flow of traffic and it's the amount of time it takes a vehicle to enter and exit the intersection.
Yeah.
And so, F is, and I'm not a traffic engineer either.
Doesn't take
but it's a certain amount of seconds that you wait to navigate the intersection.
We sometimes wait more than seconds there. But I also will ask, can you ensure that when the township does its independent traffic study, that it doesn't do it during a period of time where there are religious holidays? Because one of the days that they studied was the day after Rosh Hashanah, and what we know in Teaneck is that the week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the kids who go to religious school don't go to school. A lot of people don't go to work during that week. They take that whole week off, so the traffic is always lighter. If you drive around Teaneck on a Saturday, there's no traffic along Garrison Avenue and Cedar Lane because a full more than a third of the population is not driving that day. So I'm just asking that you ensure that that's done properly.
Not a problem. We can absolutely do that.
Yep, that's within our control.
They are.
Yes. Well, when we get to Yom Kippur, they're not. That day they absolutely.
If we get, okay.
We will make sure that it is a whole.
It is a holiday time.
Understood.
Please do not suggest a four-way stop. When there was a suggestion that there be four-way stops on Sagamore and Garrison and Forest Avenue and Sussex, I did some research into that. And I found some interesting things. And this is just off the top of my head from many years ago of the research that I did. I found that there have been studies that showed that, first of all, people don't know how to use those. So first of all, they don't know which car has the right of way. So there's a lot of this. Nobody knows which one. So first of all, other intersections become the ones that they go to. And then those intersections become the ones that they use, and those become the troublesome intersections. Then they become very accident prone, the ones that have the four-way stops. Then the ones on the main street, so that would be Garrison, that becomes a very slow intersection. And then people get annoyed that they had to wait there, and they speed up after that. Now there's a 25 mile an hour speed limit. So that's no longer going to be actually 25 miles an hour being actually used there. People are going to be speeding up there afterwards to make up for the time that they stopped there, because they're going to be annoyed now. And so they're going to be speeding up to make up for the time that they stopped there. And so all the cars and the school buses, which will be puffing out all the smoke, are going to be speeding up down the line. And, all the school buses that are going to be stopping, and there's just going to be, that's going to back up down the line. So that's what I remember from, I don't know, that was one of my first council meetings that I attended.
We can make sure all that is considered and part of this.
Okay. No, that wasn't the question even. But that just came up from when you were discussing the traffic study. My question was about the school study.
Mhm.
Now, every time that there has been discussion of a building, and this has nothing to do with the zoning, when they talk about the number of children that are going to live in the building, it seems that everybody is on massive birth control. No matter how many apartments there are, it seems that no children go to live there. It can be 100 apartments in a building. 6 children are envisioned to live there. 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, 6 children. Doesn't matter how many 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, 6 children. How many children are envisioned to live in 318 apartments? Any idea?
20.
There you go.
Sure, man.
There you go.
Well, that number, I'm familiar with that study as well. It's a white paper published by the Rutgers Real Estate School, and it's based on surveys of actual built projects where they did a census of school-age children in certain projects in TOD areas. I believe it was 2020. I'll send it to you, Chuck. Okay, 2019, maybe?
Well,
should know when you start citing a study.
I'm just referring to the white paper that you seem to be citing, and we're both familiar with.
I'm not citing a paper. I am just citing what is being said about apartments when I go to these things and people are saying how many children they envision. And I can't imagine, a 2-bedroom apartment with a young couple that is going to have absolutely no children in Teaneck, and then a 3-bedroom apartment. I know that there are going to be some grandparents and maybe in the 1-bedroom apartments, okay. But you have 318 apartments and there are going to be 20 kids. I'm sorry, that doesn't seem realistic. You go down streets in Teaneck and you seem to have a lot of kids. And they're mostly 3-bedroom houses. Drive down any street and see the school buses. Drive down any street. That's right. 3-bedroom houses, you see full school buses. Drive down a street. Where are these school buses filling up? I don't get it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I must.
Schools too.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm sorry.
It looks like that study was originally done in 2018 and then updated in 2022.
But not, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, hi. I'm Lori Lutmer. Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. One of them is that these studies, I don't know if I'm not correct, seem to have been done very recently.
Which studies are you referring to?
Well, the studies about the water, about the floods, yes. The studies, the school study hasn't been done yet. Yeah, so we're being asked, aside from there's no air pollution study
No.
and the traffic study.
There's a traffic study.
Okay, and when was that done? When was that completed?
It was completed.
Okay, so that's very recent.
That's
That's very
the March
recent, right?
second, please.
So my point is,
Sorry, just to interrupt, that the independent review that the township commissioned was as of dated as of yesterday.
Yeah.
The study that was done that was proposed by the developer, that was what,
February,
yeah,
mid-February.
mid-February, yeah.
okay, so thare these are very recent studies, including like recent,
So it's October 16th, 2025, and updated with more traffic counts,
yeah.
February 11th, 2026.
Okay, so it's very recent. It hasn't been public information for very long at all. And so and it also seems that I'm trying to understand this, that we're being asked to pass a resolution that would help an ordinance that, I don't have an ordinance to let the developer start developing. And no, I'm not understanding something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can. So
Yeah.
this does not allow them to start developing. What this does is it sets the zoning for the area basically for the next 10 years.
Okay.
Then you have the redevelopment agreement and then the site plan approval.
Okay.
And
okay.
that's the part where they start.
Right. So there are all these steps, and we're being asked to, within the next week, pass that first step.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, what's the rush?
So the rush is, and that is genuinely a great question, because I know that is a huge frustration. It's not just in Teaneck, Mike and I both represent the towns all throughout New Jersey, and that is the frustration everywhere, is what is the rush? And the rush is the state law. And the whole point is this is the state law that was passed in 2024, in 2024 is that October 24. Okay. Is that it is intentionally designed to make us do this much faster than any of us are comfortable with. That's the whole point of it. Because the idea behind it is if we don't force these municipalities, this is the legislature's idea, if we don't force them to do this, they're never going to do it. Or it will take them so long that by the time they actually get around to it, the problem is going to be even bigger. So they impose these hard fixed deadlines, like Mike said, and even look to see that March 15th is on a Sunday. They just said, here's the bright line in the sand. Everyone's got to be done by March 15th.
Okay, that's your problem. That can't be our problem as the town. You know, it can't be because we don't have the information long enough. We just don't. And there's too many issues, you know, certainly with, you know, with the flooding, with the traffic, with the students, with the kids. There's too many issues. With the zoning, making the zoning, pass the zoning and then work our way back. That's not how things work. You don't say yes and then say, oh, but.
Well,
You just say, you know, no, so it's my turn. It's our turn. It's our turn for you to listen.
Understood.
I can't, that's the way, you know, we're the residents. And we can't move forward with such little information. It's not, you know, it's not fair. It's not. And so it's the problem of the town.
Well, it's all a problem, and I will say this is
It's all the problem,
it's
yeah.
It's a problem of Teaneck. It's a problem of every other town, and it's not just us that are saying this now. There are a number of towns that have challenged this, that challenged the law, that say we don't think this is fair.
Yeah.
They went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Oh, but
And the
maybe
Supreme
that's.
Court said, nope, too bad. March 15th.
Well, you know, the point is that we don't have the information, and we don't have, and there's disagreements about the information, and you might say, the engineer might say one thing, and people's lived experience might say another. There's just not enough time.
We agree. We 100% agree.
So, you know, I hope that this resolution, am I saying the word?
Ordinance.
Fails. The ordinance does not pass.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, yes.
Judy Disler, I'll try to be fast. I learned when I was much younger, and I'm not the oldest one in the room this time, and I'm not the one who's lived here longest this time, but I did learn by the time I was 40 that you can say no, and 30 other communities have said no, and I can't be frightened by the prospect of what horrible thing might happen if we don't meet our obligation, because frankly, I think what everybody isn't saying yet, we don't like this plan. We don't want a parking garage. Nobody wants a parking garage. You're talking about children. Well, there are a lot of us older folks too. We don't want to go up to the top level and find a place to park and walk down or ride down 4 places. You're taking away parking spots. You're taking away the farmer's market. Are you kidding me? That little strip is going to hold the entire farmer's market that has become such a draw, one of the few draws around Cedar Lane in this town. Who's to say that all those parking spaces near Stop and Shop won't be taken by people in the apartments who don't want to go further or don't want to park where they're supposed to be because they'll just drop their cars there? Who's to have any feeling for that row of private houses that is now surrounded by these giant apartment houses? And can anybody tell me, what would an affordable rent be? Who's being served by this affordable rent law? Because it seems to me that everything that I've seen going up in Teaneck, in Englewood, in Hackensack, Bogota, excuse me guys, but it's all ugly. It's ugly, it's taking up too much space, and we don't want it. And this was a town that was a model community after World War II and sent as an example to Japan. I can't imagine that we are today. In Teaneck, if you want to add 3 inches to your house or redesign something, you go through 1 million inspections. I wouldn't let someone redo my kitchen without knowing what's actually going to happen, and yet you're willing to take it to the next step, and I understand you probably have every right to, before we find out, well, what's going to happen next. One of the biggest sellers, I'm a big shopper, no more on Cedar Lane, and I don't think this will help Cedar Lane, is a stack of napkins that says, "Have you seen my contractor?" Well, after the developer is finished, I think we might very well be asking, have you seen the developer? This is just not something I think that this town can support, and I hope people realize it. One more thing, scaffolding on Cedar Lane. When's that going to be finished? And who promised that that would be done? The cement work on Cedar Lane, that was a disaster within months of having been installed. There's not a lot of trust here, guys, because there's no indication that everything will turn out fine.
Thank you.
My voice can be loud. I'm Robert Lazaroff, and it's a pleasure not to look at a time clock as I'm speaking. Yes, this has been dragged out to the last possible day. The last possible day is like 5-10 days from now or so. We've been hearing this for 4 years. It's not the last possible day. We've said no. The residents of Teaneck have not wanted this meeting after meeting after meeting. No one has been supporting this in these chambers. No one has been supporting this at the Rada Center. No one has been supporting this at FDU where we've met. No one has wanted this. It's dragged on because some members of town council have realized that the community doesn't want it. And the community has so many questions that never get answered. And I would think with some of these issues that you say will be clear after the different zoning happens, after the different voting happens, you would be prepared with those answers because we want those answers. And it's really important for the people of Teaneck to feel good about what's going on, and we don't. I'm going to be riffing. My friend Phil, my neighbor Phil, brought up things about that intersection of Beverly and Garrison, and that's a huge concern for me and for many of my neighbors. This is an anecdotal traffic report, okay? I know there's been different traffic reports. Here's an anecdotal one. On January 8th, a bit over 2 months ago, my wife and I walked up our street to find Garrison Avenue closed because of a multi-vehicle collision on the intersection of Beverly and Garrison. There were police cars and ambulances surrounding 2 wrecked vehicles. Broken glass all over the street. Airbags deployed. Folks taken out from the crashed cars on stretchers. I took pictures just because I had to, knowing that this is ground zero of where Crossroads will be building. If this happens on a sunny Thursday afternoon, clear of any snow or bad weather, right where the proposed development is to be built, what happens afterwards when we have hundreds of more cars trying to get through Teaneck's already clogged streets around the Cedar Lane nexus? From my understanding, a Crossroads traffic study found this intersection to be a traffic failure. For once, I agree with Crossroads. My question, bringing in hundreds of more cars because of this luxury housing boondoggle, how do you not foresee more congestion, more accidents, more police called to the scene, more ambulances racing to Holy Name Hospital because of a dangerous intersection in 2026 before Crossroads even puts shovels to the ground? How can you assuage community concerns that what is now a dangerous intersection of Beverly and Garrison will not get even worse? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paula Rogovan. I'm not sure if you're aware of the derailment of a train in Lamagantic in 2013. 47 children and adults died when a train carrying volatile back and crude derailed and blew up like a bomb. Back and crude goes through our community. I got involved in the issue of rail safety around the issue of what happened in Lamagantic. This is a freight line. This freight line has we've all seen the black tank cars. Those carry petroleum products. They carry petroleum products, they carry chlorine, they carry dangerous materials. That's why we worked with Senator Weinberg since 2014 to get the rail safety law that was just passed in January, signed into law. because of the danger of the trains that go through all of Bergen County, that idle here in Teaneck, because we have 3 rails and we have bridges over the tracks or under the tracks. These trains are dangerous. Number 2, the plan talked about 25-year storms. We're not in that's an old-fashioned concept, 25-year storms. The storms are hitting every few years, big storms, smaller storms. And I know that over on Bell Avenue, even these smaller storms, even with the stuff that was put in under Sagamore, you're still getting water, flooding. Are you aware of the derailments around the country? I sent a letter to our attorney from the Rail Workers Union, Rail Workers United. It's not the main union, it's a caucus of rail unions, rail workers. They listed, and I sent one to each council member. They noted many, many derailments, injuries, deaths from flooding. Yesterday, I spent my afternoon with the legislative and safety director of SMART, which is the National Rail Union. He took me over to Terhune, to Kip, because we're not sure where the water is going to be drained out in the new plan. He went down what he calls a drain, you guys call it a swale. We went down to Bogota, where the councilman and former Mayor Bogota, he was talking about this problem. That drain, that swale, where you're talking about putting water, flood water, continues to Bogota. It's just a thing to collect water from storms, from rain. In Bogota, and I showed you pictures at the last meeting, the little drain area is a little stream that flows very quickly, and that area floods all the time. They have a marker that goes up, it shows 5 feet. They have barricades that they put in on Elm Street and River Road to shut the area down because the area floods frequently. They don't want our flood water. They told me, I went to their council meeting last week. They don't want Teaneck's additional flood water. Just like the people on Bell Avenue don't want us on Kip and Terhune to get their flood water. Bogota doesn't want it, and they will sue. We're worried about a lawsuit. They will sue Teaneck. A couple questions. Has Crossroads responded to CSX? CSX legal department has contacted Crossroads. Do you know if they've responded yet? Okay,
I'm not aware of.
They have contacted. So
Okay,
this is an issue.
I'm not aware of correspondence from CSX to Crossroads or of any reply.
Okay. I've met personally with the CSX representative when I was in Trenton a few times in the last few weeks for some legislation. They don't want stormwater in their tracks because it makes the tracks unsteady. They're on the clay soil and gravel, and when there's when the tracks get flooded, the tracks get unsteady and the trains get unsteady, and so we're at risk. And so the Rail Workers Union doesn't want this, CSX doesn't want this, we don't want this, and we're in the zone that will get the worst impact if there's a derailment. Like, we could die. People in North Dakota, in Canada, in Quebec died. People in at East Palestine, Ohio, died or got injured, and now they have serious health problems. So this is too serious for us to wait until the next phase of this proposal. Another question, has the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection been contacted by Crossroads? Because you have to have an approved mitigation plan. Have they been contacted? So these are some things that are very serious. Let me just say again, none of us want this. And we're going to fight it all the way. Even if you put the bulldozers to our municipal parking lots, we will be there in front of the bulldozers. So, I think it would be very important for you to say no to for the town to say no to this plan and say no to it firmly tomorrow at the council meeting.
You're both. Go ahead. I do want to say something in response to that. So as I said, the storms are growing more frequent, right? They're happening more and more often. There are already flooding issues, right? One of the benefits of this plan is that without this plan, without a redevelopment plan, without Crossroads agreeing to it, there is no fix for the situation that already exists. The benefit to this is that we have Crossroads here to help us address it. They're required to address it, whether it's the current proposal or something else. They are still required to do it. One of the benefits as well of this project is that it will result in, as the design is currently set up, or as the design is currently zoned for, there will be a 10 to 15% reduction in the amount of impervious surfaces on the ground, because of all the surface lots that we currently have. Because of how the project is being designed, it will result in less impervious surfaces, which means that more water gets absorbed into the ground before it gets to the soil, before it causes any sort of issue. So there are multiple benefits to this, things that we would not otherwise get if the project does not move forward. It's not like if this is voted down, suddenly all the water is going to be fixed. All the stormwater flooding is going to be fixed, because there is nothing in place to resolve it. So if we don't move this forward, then the current situation, which as you guys have described, is untenable. It's not going to change. And that's one of the benefits of this project, is that it gives us an opportunity to change that without any cost to the taxpayer, by having someone else pay for it in a way that still has to be satisfactory to the township. So we agree if this is a problem, we agree it needs to be addressed. One of the benefits of this plan is that it allows us to address it, and at no cost to the taxpayer. Without this plan, without these commitments by the developer, there is nothing else to fix it, and we're just going to continue to have the same problems that we've had. So if there's currently a risk of, if you believe there's currently a risk of derailment by CSX, voting down this plan does not fix that problem. I don't know what's funny about that.
It exacerbates it. This
I don't
development
know
will
what's
just
funny about it.
exacerbate it. Okay, so hi. My name is Lisa Schwartz. I live on Larch Avenue, and I haven't been involved a whole lot in this development. I live only 3 blocks from Stop and Shop, but I was involved way in the beginning when this development was started. And if you can just refresh my memory, I think I know when it was started. It was 2022, correct?
2020.
2020 was in the first.
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're 6 years, six
Yeah.
years later.
Yes.
Okay, because we keep hearing about builder's remedy. And I think, I'll talk about that. But one of the things that I want to really talk about, and for me, the overriding issue, and Judy brought it up, is trust. Trust. We keep hearing about how Crossroads is going to come and they're going to do this and they're going to fix that. Well, let me tell you, I don't trust Crossroads. And I think many of us here do not. And let me tell you why. First of all, and let me just say, I am somebody that actually is pro-development. I'm not against development. And I was really insulted when I saw one of our council members, in fact, our mayor, who put on Facebook that we are a bunch of NIMBY people who just don't want this in our backyards. I will speak for myself when I say that's not me, because I really want sensible, smart, transparent development in our town with a lot of community input. That is not what this is with Crossroads. Now, let me just say, and I'll refresh your memory, and maybe some people here don't know this, but this area was designated an area in need of redevelopment. I live in that area. It's not a blighted area. Okay, the person who did the assessment to designate this as an area in need of redevelopment, do you know who that was? Does anybody here know who that was? You do know who that was, right? Okay, I will tell you. Okay, the person who did the assessment to designate this an area in need of redevelopment just happened to be the vice president of Crossroads Development. Conflict of interest, you think? Okay, and allegedly, this was not reported to our planning board. Okay, so right there, this should have been stopped. Right then and there, this should have been stopped. Yeah. Now, we're going back 6 years that this development was in play. Now, all of a sudden, we have this state law with builder's remedy, and this is the project that is being used to address the builder's remedy. I say bullshit. Okay, I'm really angry about this because I think this is development that has been wanted. I don't know what the allegiance is to Crossroads. Okay, why we have to have Crossroads. What I would like to see, I would like this to be just squashed completely. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's do this right. Let's have public bidding by developers. Okay, and that's how it should be done. And that's what we're going back to. So this is about trust. This is a disaster. It really is. And as somebody who lives in the area, I don't trust Crossroads. We don't want Crossroads. And, you know, I would say, let's talk about development in this area. Have any of you seen Esther Sandroff's presentation?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're a bunch of us. There were a lot of people last night at that presentation. And Esther Sandroff, I'm sure you know, is a housing specialist, affordable housing specialist. Okay, she has some incredible alternative plans for how to address affordable development in this town. Now, you can go back to the state and you can have that to show them how that. Talk to her. Okay, and that you're both brilliant lawyers. I know, Salmon, you're you're a very skilled attorney. I think you can make a really good case.
He's brilliant.
Okay, yeah, I know.
Brilliant.
You're a very good lawyer. So go to court and make a good case for why this is not the sensible way. Profit making, Crossroads is profit making. They really care about affordable development. What's affordable? There's other alternatives. Let's go back to the drawing board because we don't want this. We don't trust Crossroads. This is not the developer who should be developing this area. Thank you.
The one thing I want to say is I agree with you on trust in the sense of, you know, as a lawyer, you know, and I think Mike probably would agree with this. We don't trust anybody, right? That's, you know, that's what we do as lawyers. That's why we have contracts. That is pretty much the whole purpose of a contract, is because you can't trust anybody, so you got to put something in writing that binds them to it. And I don't need to go into detail again. We've gone over a lot about all the things that are required to do as part of this. You know, the redevelopment plan, the zoning ordinance is a form of contract, and it binds them to do certain things. Like, for example, it was mentioned the farmers market before. It's in here that they have to provide the space for the farmers market. All those things. So whether you trust them or not, that's why we have the contracts to require them to comply. So I just wanted to say that one thing, but understood for everything else.
Howard Rose, Teaneck resident. If I understand this correctly, this is an ordinance that's going to be voted upon that allows a deviation from the norm and changes the land use to allow something that for 3.5 years, township residents have been against. Pretty simple terms. Everyone said no for a long time. Now, I understand why People are interested in the water flow in terms of the railroad tracks, in terms of traffic and schooling. And, I'm not that concerned about the Board of Education getting, whether it's 20 students or 40 students, that impact. So you put 0.05 students in each class. Big deal. What I'm concerned about is that a behemoth is what they're bestowing, and people don't want it. And this simply tonight is being discussed as if it's so advantageous. Well, yes, there are certain advantages that come from it. We're all aware of that. I have a store there. I'd be looking at the beast of the parking area. And yeah, there'd be more people flowing to and from Cedar Lane because they live there. I don't want that. I'm a business person. No one's asked me about that, ever.
I'm sorry, I'm not following. Which part don't you want?
Excuse me?
Which part are you saying that you do not want? The traffic or?
I don't care about all of that stuff. It's still a project that I don't want, even if it helps quote my business in terms of pedestrian flow and whatnot. Voting for this is simply a statement of, yes, let's not be concerned about the details, because it is a superficial plan right now. It's a concept, more or less. Some detail, but not a huge amount, and that's understandable. You go step by step by step, and each layer strengthens what they're doing towards the goal they have, not the goal that the township residents have. And that's the problem. And this seems to be allowing something to happen that's the very first and a very strong step towards allowing that process to continue. It's a metamorphosis. My God, the beast is going to be terrible. It should be stopped. Yes.
Okay, my name's Hallie Wanamaker. I live on Church Street. I have a question. Have you ever been to the farmer's market in Teaneck? Have you ever gone to it and bought something there? Parked your car? Have you guys, the two of you, ever been there?
I have not been to the farmer's market, but I am a frequent customer on Cedar Lane.
Okay. And Scott, you've never been to the farmer's market. Okay. It is a beautiful scene. It is beautiful. There is not only a lot of healthy food, but there's all sorts of activities going on, voter registration, neighborhood association tables. It takes a lot of room because the Amish come in with their trucks and they bring in all this gorgeous broccoli and kale and all this stuff, but it takes room. Okay. And where Mr. Lazaroff, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, said that it was that horrible accident. That is right where that strip is that you say is going to be the farmer's market. That's a joke. Okay. I'm an older person. I have a bad back. Okay. When I leave the farmer's market, my car's parked right there and I can bring my work, my stuff to the car done. But for the idea of me going into a parking lot, going in an elevator or walking upstairs or whatever, it's impossible. I won't do it. Okay. I can't do it. Okay. So I really think this whole thing about like you're giving us a strip for the farmer's market is a joke. It really is a joke. And then also the parking lot. Okay. So is this a paying parking lot or a free public parking lot? What is this?
That has not been determined.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's say we don't know, so 50-50, we're going to pay like whatever, $5, $10 to go into a parking lot to be able to go to the farmer's market or to go on Cedar Lane and buy some pizza or to go to the bookstore, Howard's bookstore, Mr. Rose's bookstore. I mean, that is such a crazy idea. And who's going to take care of that parking lot? I don't know about you, but every parking lot I go into is full of garbage and, cars parked there illegally. I mean, this is like a huge expense for our town. And that hasn't even been figured out. Okay, not only.
That can be addressed. That I can address and say that it's that parking lot will be owned by Crossers. They will be responsible.
They will be responsible for the upkeep of, you're saying that to us. How do we know that? Yeah, for 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, what's the deal?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, so all that is gonna be worked out as part of the next phase, the redevelopment agreement.
Well, that is not acceptable to me. I mean, we just had 27 inches of snow. We're going to keep getting that much snow. This is global warming. It's taking the moisture up. It's dumping either rain or snow, rain or snow. Okay. So we're, like, people have barely enough room in their driveway to get their cars in there. They're supposed to get off the street. People park in those parking lots during snowstorms. So that we have to pay to go into a parking lot? And anyway, okay. And besides that, parking lots are not built anymore. That is a retro idea. Okay. Look around. Look over to Hackensack. Where do they put their parking lots? Underneath the buildings. Okay. Because they're ugly. People don't use them. You go to either of the malls on Route 4. Nobody uses those parking lots. They don't. They'd rather go a mile and walk and be above ground. Myself as a woman, I won't go into parking lots. I've had bad experiences in elevators or parking lots, and I will not do it. Especially as a senior woman, I'm not going to do it. So I think that's a really, really bad plan. And then the last thing I want to say is, has Crossroads made any contributions to any people on our council?
I don't know the answer.
You don't know the answer?
I don't.
Do you know the answer, Scott? You know the answer.
I believe some individuals from Crossroads have made 2 contributions to right? Yeah, that's two. To their political campaigns.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people who are going to be voting on this, who should be recusing themselves, I don't know if it's illegal, but it certainly is unethical. Okay. And we just had an example. We just had an example of Pagan, who did have a contribution from West Inglewood, the 154 West Inglewood. He recused himself. He did the right thing. Okay. He did the ethical thing. Okay. So we need trust. We need trust with our council. For the people who got those campaign contributions, they should not be voting on this. That is just, I think that we will have a case, an ethics case, if they do that. And that makes me really angry. Not only can we not trust Crossroads, but we can't even trust our council, right? And Scott, you're such a great guy, but for goodness sake, are you representing us? Are you representing Crossroads? Because every time I hear you speak at the council meetings, it sounds like you're their attorney. And please, will you represent us? We're paying your salary, okay? The people who are up on the dais that are in the council, we democratically elected them. They're supposed to represent us. You're supposed to represent us, okay?
So I can answer that in the sense of I don't represent, and same with Mike, we don't represent either of what you just described. We don't represent you as members of the public. We don't represent Crossroads. We represent the government of Teaneck, the township of Teaneck itself. We represent the members of the council. We represent all the employees here in the building. But that's why, if I have a conversation with Phil Yuck, I don't have attorney-client privilege with Phil because I don't represent him as a member of the public. Same with Mike. We represent the township itself, and so that is who our obligation is to. And your interests as a resident may be different than what the government's interests are. That's the only thing we represent, though, is the government itself. I know it sounds like lawyer talk. It is literally lawyer talk. But there is an important distinction in there. What all of you have expressed your own interest, we understand it. As lawyers, we're not here to represent your specific interest. We represent what's in the best interest of the government itself.
And we're also not the decision makers, he and I.
Very much.
Yes, but you influence the decision makers. And there's been a lot of scare tactics around builder's remedy. Scott, you are responsible for that. You really are.
Because
okay?
Again,
No, you have been filling them ears with scare tactics rather than factual information.
That is facts.
So,
I have to disagree with that. Yeah, I agree that, it sounds scary because it is scary because the facts of a builder's remedy are scary. And this is a perfect example of what is in the best interest of the government may not be in each of your best interests. And so that is our job here, is to represent the interests And if it's scary, if it sounds scary, it's because it is scary, and that's why we're advising, what we advise the
Yeah.
other towns.
I think we should join the other 30 towns who are saying no.
They
I
just,
hope our council members
They-
will say no tomorrow night to this.
those 30 towns lost at the U.S. Supreme
Well,
Court.
you have to keep fighting.
And well,
okay?
they are going to be
We
sued
have a new governor,
incessantly until they have no municipal power to control their own zoning.
I don't know. I think let's do the right thing. Let's not do the wrong thing.
We've seen the towns where it's
And just to look at time, we have about 15 or so
Yeah.
minutes. So.
Hi, I'm Sandy Silverberg, and when people say that this is not in my backyard, I think everybody in Teaneck should be thinking that every other place in Teaneck is my backyard. And I think we're very skittish, and I think that especially the council, you have to respect the fact that we've been through this before. We've been through a housing project, and it was a disaster. And so we don't want to do that anymore. For years,
Yeah, I'm sorry,
we
can
came
you tell us which
to
one you're-
meetings.
Sorry
Sorry,
to interrupt you, but which project you?
I'm talking about the Mark.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure we're on. Thank you.
There are people there that I know that one day walked out of their front door and that was the view. And that was a disaster. And the roads are insufficient. So we know a lot of things anecdotally, but there was never an improvement in the roads. I finally got a stop sign that everybody runs. So that doesn't do us any good. It's dangerous. But I think that explains a little bit why we're so skittish, is that we have a lot of negative experience. There has never been, to my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's never been an expanding project that was ever embraced by the people. Say, this is good building. This is organic building. And the only other thing I wanted to kind of query, because I'm not exactly sure, is that the whole length of Cedar Lane, where that parking garage, and you get the sense of the crowd here, that whole piece has stores in front of it. There's not much easement between the building and the stores. If anything is an area in need of revitalization, it's the 1920s, 30s construction of the whole of that part of Cedar Lane. I'm shocked that anybody applauds, but I'm not looking for that. I'm just trying to say that it's not with any disrespect. I'm not saying this with any anger, but I've been burned by previous projects, and this sounds like the cart before the horse. Vote on faith, and I don't think we should do that.
Hey. I'm not an engineer. I'm definitely not a professional engineer. I don't think you two are either, right?
No.
But when an engineer, particularly one who has a PE designation, has gone through the exams, they have a state license for that. Is that correct?
Yes.
That means that when an engineer reviews plans and they actually put their stamp on it, and a PE licensed engineer is the only person other than a licensed architect who can sign off on plans and documents. Is that correct?
Yes.
There's something behind there, and they don't have the liberty to just willy-nilly approve something and say they like that because their actual license is at stake with other sanctions that can come along with that, correct? Okay. Speaking to lawyers, I am not a lawyer. Both of you are. I am not in favor of crossroads of this plan, but frankly, it doesn't make a difference. You both represent towns throughout the state. We know of the other 30 towns. There were many in Bergen County that took it as far as the Supreme Court. They had an appeal up in front of the Supreme Court. And if I'm not mistaken, as recently a week ago, that was denied. They're stuck. They have problems other than us. Are you aware of any other townships that are playing chicken right now that are taking this up as a game as Teaneck is right now, taking it down to the wire?
They're taking down to the wire.
That have a plan on the table and have decided we don't like something, so we are now going to play games to potentially open ourselves up to liability.
So one town that I represent on I was in the planning board and the zoning board is Lambertville. They at the beginning of this was the last summer when Teaneck, like the town adopted our housing element, and we included Crossroads among the other developers. Lambertville, there was a specific project that Lambertville decided they did not want to include. They were immediately sued. They immediately lost their immunity from builder's remedy lawsuit, and they were forced to both adopt the zoning. They were forced to put the project on their housing element. They were forced to approve all the plans for it already, and they were forced to pay for all the attorney's fees. So they ended up getting exactly what they want. So it's not, I'll say, this part of the deadline, this exact deadline, but they ran up against and broke it about a year ago, and they already have paid the price.
But that's real effective. And correct me if I'm misusing the term case law as to what builder's remedy actually means, correct?
Right. So I'm redevelopment counsel for Cranford and Union County. Cranford was actually sued maybe about 15 years ago by a developer. The developer won that builder's remedy lawsuit. And instead of the project that developer proposed for the site, they built something that was effectively 150% of the density. And in one ugly, very dense and tall building, there are about 500 units. And then Cranford became the poster child for all other towns in Union County for what not to do. And when Cranford had the opportunity to fix that going forward, they were sued to comply with their third round obligation, and they did so with a lot of reluctance, a lot of public opposition, and meetings very similar to this. And when the fourth round laws came out, Cranford said, "Uncle, we're complying." Because if we can control the outcome, even if we don't like every aspect of it, we want to be in control. We want to be in the driver's seat because we don't want to be told what to do, not by a developer, but by a judge who's going to write the zoning. The judge writes the zoning. And the only thing the judge cares about, the only mandate to that judge is how many affordable units is this town deficient, and how many can we squeeze onto this property? And then you get what you get.
So to be very clear, this is not hypothetical. This is not theoretical. There are real cases of what this means in New Jersey with real liabilities that are ultimately borne by the taxpayer. Is that correct?
Let me give you an even better.
I just want to be, that's
No,
correct,
you're
right? Perfect.
I wanted to say this one.
I was quiet when you
One other example of this is it's ongoing right now.
Milburn.
They're
Yep.
one of the more egregious ones right now where they're just refusing to cooperate with the developer. So the court took away their ability to do any sort of zoning. They've prevented the township from restricting any development anywhere in town. Not only that, there's one specific project in mind where the town is being forced to pay for the construction costs of the project that they hated so much that they refused to do it. So not only do they have to see the building go up, but they actually have to pay for it themselves, plus all the legal fees. There's a chance that the council members there get personally fined by the court as well. That's obviously an extreme example, but there's a lot of precedent. As far as I'm aware, the only time that any municipality has ever won a builder's remedy lawsuit was in 1985, my hometown of Scotch Plains. That's the only time I'm aware of them ever winning.
And to be clear, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I really don't understand a lot of this. The failure to introduce and frankly table it at the last meeting, and the failure to potentially introduce this tomorrow night, well, if it does get introduced, all that means is that it will ultimately go to another vote. And even if it's voted to introduce, and even if the ordinance passes, that does not even mean that A, this development ultimately gets built. That's actually dependent on the developer, even to come with the funds and whatever else they have to do.
Correct.
That does not even mean that it gets built as this, because there's still lots of other discussions, as you've explained, with regards to plans, engineering, design, that still have to be worked out with the planning board and with the council and with the community. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So looking around this room, you know, I'm probably the youngest person here. I've probably been there here the fewest years, and thank God I'm surrounded by caring and supporting neighbors, residents, and fellow citizens. But here's what bothers me, and it's the same thing that bothered me about the master plan. And I've said this before at the planning board. I said this when I was in the focus groups in the basement of the library, and I've said it here as well. There's no young input. You know why? People have families, people are serving dinner, people are putting kids to bed, people are tired because they have jobs and they're working. They don't necessarily have the energy to come out and speak about this. Their energy, their money is going to putting food on their table and keeping a roof over their head, making sure that they can cover their next bill. Hold on a second. My great fear is that I want to live here in 10 years and 15 years and 20 years. I want my kids to be able to live here in 30 years. I wouldn't be able to afford my house that I bought 13 years ago if I tried to move in today. My kids won't be able to buy a house here when they try to move in 10, 15 years from now. Do you know how much housing stock there is in Teaneck, houses and apartments?
I don't.
It's between $14,000 and $15,000. If you ever look on Zillow, do you know how many of those are ever for sale? It's between 30 and 40. 1/4% of the housing stock is ever up for sale. You know what the average is across Bergen County? It's about 0.35%. Okay, so we're about 80% of that. You know what it is across the state of New Jersey? Speaking to everyone back there, it's about 0.9%. So we're less than a third of what that is. There's nothing to buy. We keep on hearing people are leaving. People want to move in, right? I mean, I can ask the realtor in the room when something comes up on the market, even if it goes on the market, how long does it stay for unless there's something else that needs to be remediated, like unforeseen damage or mold or boilers? It doesn't stay on for long. People are begging to be able to move in. And frankly, when it comes to being progressive, I would love not only for more affordable housing for people who can pay for it, but even affordable housing for those that can't. But getting back to the point at hand, we don't really have a choice here, do we? I mean, there's nothing also keeping Crossroads from saying, to heck with this plan, right? They're sitting here as good folks who want to work with us, bring things to the table. They could say, we want to withdraw. 17th come around, we're just going to go drop a lawsuit and do what we want to. Is that correct?
It's possible.
It's possible. Or frankly, 10 other developers who want to come in and say, we're going to build in everybody's backyard, to heck with anything else.
This fourth round is brand new. It was a totally new framework. And what the state did in partnership with Fair Share Housing, who is the prime advocacy group for affordable housing in New Jersey. And they're basically a law firm of lawyers that only go around and advocate for affordable housing in different towns. And this fourth round framework took what they thought were parts that worked from prior rounds, and they tried to bring in new aspects like bonus credits and things like that to incentivize development around transit-oriented locations and other things. And then they constrained the timeline, and everyone had to figure this out at the same time. So we don't know what's going to happen on March 16th.
But we're throwing
the dice. That is when the clock stops, and you have either complied or you haven't. And what happens then?
In the chair or not?
We don't know. I picture like kind of the end of Ghostbusters 1, when the ghosts just start flying all over the city and we don't know what to do or where to start. That's the result if you don't have a certificate of compliance. Things are going to come at you from a lot of different directions, and they're going to be new ideas for new projects in new places that you didn't even anticipate, because we're not talking about them now. Right now, we're talking about what we can reasonably control.
So at the end of the day, this is an option on the table that allows us to meet our obligation and mitigate the risk of doing nothing, correct?
Yes.
So I implore everyone, and I beg you, please, 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 please. I understand this is not perfect. I absolutely agree with you. but please have some vision here. The future of Teaneck that it is today, when you all moved here, please think of what Teaneck can be for those that are going to be here in 20, 30, 40 years, where you're sitting today. We need to think a little bit ahead. Thank you.
So I'm just looking at, it's 9 o'clock now. Just when we finish the people who are online.
I will talk as fast as I can.
Get the people
Okay.
online, I mean.
I've been in Teaneck for 57 years. And as you can see, I'm a senior. And I work very hard for the seniors of this town. We have over 3,000 seniors in this town. And I'm the board of the seniors for the last 25, 30 years. So they keep asking me all kinds of questions. And one of the main questions is, what the hell are those buildings coming up in this town? We came here to live in a town, not in a city. So that's one of the things. But the seniors do have power. We have 3,000 of them. 800 come to our senior center every week. 800, okay? And they like to know what's going on. And I was going to fight for Cedar Lane, but I see what's going on, so I'm going to fight for not getting those buildings up. To come to a meeting, I mean, the seniors don't come to the meetings at night because they don't drive at night and whatever. But I called for an afternoon meeting once, and you couldn't get into the building. We had about 250 people showed up. So if you're going to do things and take away our town and make it into a city, you're going to have to fight the seniors. And I'll let you know, you don't want to do that. Okay? No, you don't.
I don't want to.
No.
No.
So
I know. I already know.
be nice, be good guys, and really drop this. We don't want a city. We want a town. And that's what we're fighting for. And I will fight now from today on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Powers, Teaneck. I want to start with understanding where the number of 10 to 15% less imperviousness actually came from. Were you talking about Beverly, which is the only area that's affecting the flooding?
Yeah.
Or were you talking about the totality of the entire project?
Well,
do you know the answer to that?
Beverly.
And don't cite numbers if you don't know what the numbers are.
It's from Beverly.
It's 10 to 15% less. How can that possibly be with every single piece of the Beverly side being taken up to the curb?
There's a front lawn.
Are you talking about
On Beverly.
Are you talking about the Garrison piece?
No, on Beverly.
Where?
In front of the residential.
How much is it?
Well, it's a setback of
How many
varying
square feet is it?
square footage. It's about
Of the park of the entire thing is 1,000 square feet, right?
it's a little bit more.
But it's not all impervious, right?
I don't have the exact.
So we don't know what we're talking about when we talk about imperviousness.
That's not what he said.
It's about a 10% reduction overall from
Where?
from the surface parking lot that exists today.
How can that be? It covers the entire thing,
Doesn't, as he just said, it doesn't.
except for that little tiny piece that is a little piece of space in front of the 1,000 foot of impervious.
Correct.
Okay. So almost certainly not 10 to 15% saving. Do we have a contract with the, I should rephrase this. What precisely has the town engineer committed herself to in respect of saying that this is the right concept?
What part are you talking about?
You said earlier that the township engineer had committed herself to this being the right project.
I'm sorry, are you talking specifically about the
What
water?
did she say?
Sorry, I'm going to understand the question. Are you talking specifically about the stormwater? Or are you talking about the traffic? Or are you talking about the whole
I'm talking
project? What
about
do you-
the drainage.
The drainage, okay. She reviewed the proposal and she agreed, same as Colliers, our independent engineer said.
And she wrote it down?
She wrote it down for us, yes.
Where is it?
In emails.
Why has the public not seen it?
Because there is an,
I don't know.
it's an email that we asked her, we said, what, have you looked at this? Do you sign off on this? Do you agree that this proposal can
What
work?
precisely did you said sign off on?
Yes,
Meaning what?
Meaning, here's an idea for infrastructure
Yeah,
that could be built
right,
that will increase drainage capacity.
right. Which,
and she looked at it and she said, yes, I.
and
think
she
it's
said,
that-
and now Colliers has come along and questioned whether or not it's feasible.
No.
No,
that's not what
no.
it
Yes.
is. Let's be clear.
There's
I read it.
hold on. Right now all we're talking about is concepts. We're talking about zoning
Okay.
and the concept of a project.
Oh,
And there's going to be detailed in engineering and construction plans
yeah,
between now
yeah.
and if this ever gets
If
to
it
the
ever
regular-
happens,
if it ever gets to the planning board, when they will have this detail and it will be reviewed as part of a site
Site
plan
plan.
application.
okay.
So what Colliers said.
But it's not the planning board which is being signed off on in the redevelopment plan. It is going with whatever the engineer happens to end up saying about it in a situation where I read Colliers to saying we don't know, we certainly don't know a damn thing about the regulatory structure and whether or not that could possibly ever be approved. They certainly said that.
I don't know that they concluded
Well,
that.
they included regulatory as something they had no idea about.
I think the statement was any final design may need permits
Okay.
and may need approvals, which
And
which will happen.
when Colliers, you called up Colliers and said, would you guys take a look at this?
right?
And they said, where are the construction plans? And you said,
I said there are none.
right.
Right.
We're not
What
that-
we have is not a plan. You should know, I actually have a little experience. I was a full professor of civil and environmental engineering at Vanderbilt University. I was also a full professor of community, occupational, and environmental medicine at Rutgers. I have a substantial background. One of the things I certainly knew, though I don't have licenses in those, I also was a professor at Yale Law School. I have a lot of really careful experience in knowing what the difference is between what a concept is and what a plan is. And we don't have a redevelopment plan. We have a bunch of concepts for which the developer will claim that these things that he says that are specific, we would be held to. But what is most important to most of us tonight, traffic, whether or not we want the multi-stage garage. I'm going to ask the next question. When is it that this is all going to happen? You have said now 3 times tonight, or at least twice, that we have no idea whether or not this thing will ever be developed. I want to go back to the drainage issue. The town was poised to put a very substantial retention tank underneath what? The Beverly parking lot. It didn't, it put a little piece of additional piping. It didn't do that. And it looks like it can't go ahead and do what it wants to do with this plan. And so it put forward now a couple of ideas that might have a 15% reduction, dump water through a whole set of regulatory or other entities who might very well stop it. Whereas the town, beginning next week, could go ahead and put the retention tank underneath the Beverly parking lot and handle the entire business of what it is it can't handle with Sagamore. I've been watching this project very closely. And what I just said, would you question any of?
I'm sorry, are you asking for what?
Yeah, would you question what I just said about the fact that the town could begin to get a retention tank that would handle much of that 15%, perhaps more, and send it off much more slowly wherever it is currently now going. It can't do that because there's going to be a building on top of it in what we will commit ourselves to with the concepts, not a redevelopment plan. One of the things I learned as a professor of all those things I just told you I have been is what the difference between a concept is and a real plan to which people are willing to commit themselves. We don't have that at this point. And you're asking our council, and incidentally, as I understand it, your client is the majority of the Teaneck Council. You said it was the government. I don't know who the government is. Who is the government?
The government is the township itself. It is the the mayor, all the members of the council. It is all the employees that work here. It is all the different boards and agencies and everything else. We represent it all, and all the individual members. And that's what the government is.
So who is it that is your client when it comes to something like what it is you should be doing in respect of protecting us?
Who is the client? I just said it is the full government and all of its.
And the full government has taken a vote and said they want.
No, I'd say they all.
How do they let you know who it is that what it is that they want you to do?
Well,
as your client,
they approved
I'm
two
not
settlement
asking
agreements.
you. I'm asking the township council.
That's actually not true. Just the same as the general counsel for a corporation. They represent the corporation. They represent all the employees. All the employees don't sit there and take a vote. Just every decision that gets made. So they
Well, I was a vice president of a Fortune 500 company at one point, and I know exactly what it was that the council of the company I was working for and who they responded to. They responded to the board of trustees. Your board of trustees is your council, and your council voted 4-2 the other day to table this thing. And you went ahead and came up with a workaround to go ahead and get it on the agenda for tomorrow in a way which I find at least ethically questionable.
Whoa.
I'm sorry. I find it ethically questionable.
That's where I'm going to draw the line.
Okay.
Please, before you impugn us, and it's not just me, it's a lot of people involved. You can have your objections, but please don't bring our ethics into this. Way out of bounds.
How is it that a council voted to put out something on the table, and by getting about 12 word changes, you decided to give it a new number and go ahead and do it?
We don't have the authority to schedule a meeting. We can ask them to schedule a meeting to introduce something, and we did ask the council, and we had a majority of the council that said, yes, we would like to have a meeting so that we would consider this change thing. We don't have the power to decide this. We don't have the power to decide any of it.
I got lost in what your answer was.
You want me to repeat it again?
Yes, I want you to repeat it again.
We asked the council, would you like to have a special meeting if we do this? And if you decide to introduce it, you're not obligated to introduce it just by having the meeting. But if you want to have a meeting, we can give you another option here that would allow you.
A special meeting is called for by the mayor of the township.
That is one option. It's not the only option.
That's right. And did you go to the entire council?
Yes, we did. And a majority of the council agreed, yes, we would like to have a special meeting so we can consider this. They were not bound to consider this ordinance.
This ordinance, not 54.
No, I'm sorry. That was. I didn't understand you were talking about that. Yes, they asked to have agreed to have a special meeting to consider this, as well as 54 West Englewood, which is not, the subject of discussion tonight, but a majority of the council agreed, let's have a meeting to discuss it. They all knew they were not bound to vote not one way or another, but they all agreed to have a special meeting. So there's nothing dubious, questionable about what we did.
So except a 10-word change allowed you to go past the point that your council voted not simply to table it, but specifically to table it to the 10th.
They tabled a different version of this.
By how many words?
I don't know.
12?
I wasn't prepared for a pop quiz.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Either way, they chose to do this. We give them options. They make decisions. That's what they're elected to do.
Is it fair to say that there is no verbiage, no study, no report, no outcome of any other professional that would change your mind or have you support this concept?
Now, how I form my views, you've already told me tonight, have absolutely no impact on anything because I have no power, remember? You told me that, you told me that specifically. So why are you interested about what my view is? I certainly do not trust the leadership of Crossroads to carry out anything. They have given us so many different options along the way and then discarded them in ways we had no way of following. No, I don't trust them to be taking over the middle of my town.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that they came up with a redevelopment plan that would meet the criteria of being anything more than a concept in respect of what at least 3 members of the council have along the way said must be solidified and certain before we go ahead. And they are being asked to pass a redevelopment plan tomorrow that lacks that specificity. And as you have many times tonight said, we have concepts, we don't have a plan. And it's not time to say, we have one other really fundamental option that you folks have not considered at all. And it's what Esther Sandroff came up with. If she says if we get a nonprofit to come in and take a piece of town property and put 48 affordable housing units and move ahead on that beginning tomorrow night, we won't meet the date, the 15th, but any judge who says you guys didn't care about affordable housing will know that that's absolutely baloney and will find it very difficult not to make sure that the developers remedy functions in ways that hurt this town, for a town that is very much committed to affordable housing, always has been, but wants it done in the style and with the people it trusts. Thank you very much.
You and Ron, and then we're.
I just have a quick question. Well, 2 quick questions. One is, I think your estimate of the number of parking spaces is going to be off, because if you look at the number of cars around Teaneck, I think you're underestimating the number of cars that are used by families. I know I'm an outlier. I had 3 cars and 3 motorcycles at one point, but I don't see, if you look around Teaneck, most families, if they're 2-person families, most of them have 2 cars, and when they have older children, end up having 3. So I think 1 point something is probably going to be an undercount. Second thing is, has Crossroads contacted New Jersey Transit about commuters?
First of all, I will say, at no point can we ever, we don't, as I said, we don't represent Crossroads. We can't
I know.
speak on behalf.
We don't know.
Okay.
Can't speak on behalf.
Okay, because I would like to commend Deputy
he's-
Mayor Belcher, who has been working towards that. I spoke with Paul Wyckoff in the office of the CEO and president of New Jersey Transit to see what has been done, and he said he would get back to me, but
I will say, as part of one of the settlement agreements that we did at the beginning of this year, we are committed, the township is going to be doing its own independent traffic transportation study, and that will be in cooperation with NJ Transit, so I can't speak for Crossroads. The township, as part of this, will be doing this in conjunction with both NJ Transit as well as Bergen County. So,
okay.
that fully answers the question, but at least.
Because as of 2019, they told me that No more buses, no more bus lines, and unless there's a new port authority, it's way over capacity. That's why I called him last Thursday, and he called me back, and he said he'll get back to me. Took him 2.5 hours, so I would assume that if somebody tried to contact him, they would have heard back and gotten some information. So, thank you, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Belcher. Thank you.
All right, guys, just a couple more questions I wasn't able to ask last time. There are, am I correct? There are 3 publicly owned lots that are being transferred as part of this development plan? The three parking lots? Right? There's 3, right? There's three lots that have to be transferred, but the town currently owns them. American Legion Drive and the 2 off of Beverly, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Where is the appraisal of those 3 properties that has been done that would show us, will let us
Hasn't been
know?
done yet.
Hold, let me finish the question.
Hasn't been done yet.
Where is the appraisal that's supposed to be done before the town can transfer those properties to the developer? How do we know how much the developer is going to have to pay for those properties?
Hasn't been done
Let
yet.
me finish. So in the
The answer is we don't know.
No, hold on a second. So in the
Okay.
2026 settlement agreement, that was the beginning of this year, the redevelopment agreement, not the redevelopment plan, the redevelopment agreement will include mutually acceptable terms and conditions upon which the township will convey township-owned properties to Crossroads in accordance with the previously described Stop and Shop settlement agreement at reasonable market value as determined by an independent and impartial appraiser agreed upon by the parties. So as that will come as part of the redevelopment agreement process. We'll
Okay.
be figuring all that
So
out.
Scott, there's been no appraisal done yet.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? What happens if there is an appraisal done and Crossroads says, it's too much, I don't want to pay that? What happens next?
Then I guess there's no project.
You think the project falls?
I don't know.
I'm asking you for legal
If
advice.
we-
You guys are the
if-
experts.
If we can't come to business terms,
Yeah.
then there's no project.
Okay, so wouldn't it have been smarter to go through that now than go through a whole redevelopment plan and all the other stuff that has to go on?
No.
When we don't even know whether Crossroads is willing to pay any particular price for those 3 publicly owned lots. Okay, that's one question. Is the answer is we don't know.
No, the answer
We
is
don't know. The answer is we don't know.
the answer is the state forced us to
Yeah, but
adopt this zoning.
The answer to the first
First.
question is, Michael,
First.
is we don't know yet, right?
No, the answer is it hasn't been done yet.
So
Scott
we-
told you exactly when
So we don't.
we agreed to do it.
So we don't know, and we're
That was
leaving
not
that for the
question.
redevelopment
You were
agreement, right?
asking about whether it'd be smarter or not, and it doesn't really matter in the sense of this is what has been agreed to, and that's in a large part because of the state law that forces us to do the redevelopment plan now. But it will be done, and if we can't come to
All right.
terms, then we can't come.
So
to
I'm just trying to say, as it stands now, we don't know whether Crossroads is willing to pay $1 for the publicly owned lands that he's going to get.
I presume
don't know
we
that.
would pay
Pay a
$1.
dollar?
Well, he's here. So maybe we should mention a price to him now. Maybe we should work on something now. So everything is being wait until the redevelopment agreement. And if he doesn't want to pay then the project fails. Okay, second issue. Is the settlement agreement back in 2022 and 2023 required the town to reasonably consider a pilot program. Does everybody know what a pilot program is? The payment in lieu of taxes program. Is there one being considered as the settlement agreement seems to indicate? And if so, how long a period of time will the developer be released from paying real estate taxes? How long a program is it?
So no application has been made for a pilot. They have not applied for one yet. I presume that they will at some point, although they're not necessarily required to. That again typically does not come until much later on, closer to the redevelopment agreement. They will make their application. We're required to consider it in good faith, and whether or not the township awards that is entirely in the discretion of the township council.
Okay, but just a question, why can't that be worked out? Why couldn't that have been worked out in the last 5 years so
Because
that the
they can't-
public knows what we're going to get as far as payments per year and what we're not going to get as far as real estate tax?
The reason is because until the project is zoned and then designed and engineered, it is not possible for the developer to know. They have to get their financing in place. They can't do that until they know what they're going to be building and how much it's going to cost and all that. So until that's done, which can't happen until after the redevelopment plan, once they're figuring out the details of the redevelopment agreement, that's when they can start to put the financial picture in place and then determine, do they need a pilot? If so, how much? And that way they can make the request. But it's not possible It's not no, don't shake your head.
No, I have to disagree with you,
No,
Scott.
you
I have
can
to
disagree
disagree with
me,
you.
but between Mike and I, we've done enough work throughout the state. We know it is not possible. It's not possible. I'm going to repeat it one more time. It is not possible for them to have put together a request for a financial agreement or a pilot until they know what they're allowed to build.
And until there's a redevelopment plan, and until they're designated redeveloper for this redevelopment plan. And
Okay.
until they have a redevelopment agreement, only then can they first apply for a pilot.
And I would urge, if you could name me one instance ever in the history of New Jersey in which a financial agreement, which involves a pilot, was negotiated and agreed upon before a redevelopment plan, before a redevelopment agreement, before any of these things happen, I would love to hear it. It's never happened.
Well,
It's never happened.
It's very unusual that project this size is the result of an AINR here in
It's
Teaneck.
actually
And I
extraordinarily
can't
common that you have-
imagine that nobody connected with the township has discussed the possibility of a pilot program with this developer over the past 5 years. Okay.
We know that they
let's
asked
get-
us to
let's get
to
past that.
include it and consider in good faith.
Okay, so this project could also fall apart if no pilot agreement is reached between the parties, right?
Maybe.
That could fall apart too, right?
There are a million
Maybe.
steps between here
Oh,
and
okay.
groundbreaking.
Yeah, so it's amazing to me that the developer would not know whether he was getting a pilot program going into this. Okay. 3, I was a trial lawyer for 47 years. I tried at least 5 homicide cases with the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office. Would you agree with me that going into trial, a trial is never a slam dunk? No matter what the odds are, no matter what the legal arguments are on either side, it's never a slam dunk, right?
What's
right?
What's your question?
I'm asking you a question. Going into trial, it's
We're-
never a
you're
slam
not
dunk, is it?
cross-examining
Your side is
us.
never a slam dunk, is it?
What is your question about the project that we will
Okay,
answer in good faith?
I'm talking about the developer's remedy, okay? I'm asking you, going into trial, knowing you guys are trial attorneys, right?
In the sense of.
I'm a,
trial
I'm a
attorney. You've been in
certified
trial?
civil trial attorney, Mr.
Yeah,
Schwartz.
okay, fine. You've both been into trial. If you ever go in saying this is a slam dunk, do you ever tell your clients this is a slam dunk, you're going to lose?
No, but what we do is we outline risk and we outline the potential pitfalls of not taking certain action.
And you also outline the opposing views, right?
We don't know
Right.
what the opposing view is because if we don't have protection in the form of immunity from a builder's remedy suit, we don't know what suits will be coming.
I'll say the answer. to the
So
question-
you don't know
The answer
what
to the
suits
question-
that will be
Crossroads,
coming, but you're
Crossroads will
trying
be
to
top of the list.
You're trying to put fear into these council members by saying you're absolutely going to get sued by the builder's remedy. And not only that, are you going to get sued, but the suit is going to be successful in court. I haven't heard you say anything else other than that to this council, okay? And let me just finish, okay? I think most respectfully to my fellow brothers in the bar, you don't make people make decisions out of fear. You let them make decisions, giving them proper legal advice, which maybe you're doing, but you don't keep on harping on it as fear that you're going to lose, you're going to lose, you're going to lose, and the town's going to be destroyed. That may not happen, okay? Let me ask you this question. If there's a builder's remedy here and this builder takes this project to court, does he have to show that he owns the land upon which he wants to build?
We're not getting into specific legal advice that we would give the council.
I can tell you.
You've been giving
Ron,
council legal advice and you haven't researched this?
Here's what I
You're
say,
kidding?
Ron.
You're telling me that, Michael?
Ron,
You haven't researched this. You haven't researched the builder's remedy? Well, I have.
No, this is going beyond
No,
being a
no,
productive
you're
exchange
exactly
of
given the
information.
reasons why this should be voted for tomorrow because of the builder's remedy.
Ron, you're right. It is not a slam dunk. Someone's
Can you answer my question? No, you didn't answer my question, Scott.
this
I
isn't
asked you,
productive anymore.
does the builder going to court on the builder's remedy have to show that he owns the land upon which he wants to build? Answer the question.
Can I answer the question? You've asked several questions now. first of
No,
all.
the question I asked you, no, Scott, I'm answering the question, you're giving the answer, okay?
Okay.
Listen
You
to my
asked several
question and give me the correct answer that you want to give. I asked you the third time now. If this builder goes to court, if this gets denied tomorrow night and he starts a builder's remedy, does he have to show the court that he owns the property upon which he wants to build?
Can I
Yes or
answer-
no? Can you answer yes or no?
Can I answer the previous questions that you answered?
I don't know. No, I don't want you to answer the previous question. I want
You
you
don't
to
want
answer
to answer
that
the
question because it's very concerning to me on this particular issue. If you don't want to answer it, don't answer it.
I can't answer the previous questions, which are part of that answer, then no, I'm not going to answer.
All right, fine. So I will tell you, I will answer this for you because I've done some research.
Okay,
The builder has to show that
you're
he
not-
owns the
we're not
property
here-
upon which
We're not here
he
to be
wants to
lectured
build.
by you.
Cases have absolutely denied builders remedies where there is no showing that he owns the land upon which he wants to build.
Oh,
Number two,
your
he has to
premise-
have a
your premise
reasonable
is
plan
wrong.
for development also.
Your premise is wrong.
No,
because
not-
Crossroads owns real estate here.
He owns one little, does he own? Does
They
he own?
may not own the
I
parking
just
lot.
talked about the 3
Ron,
parking lots.
Talking, please let him speak.
They may not own the parking lots, but they do own real estate. And there is a settlement agreement that has a certain number of units in density and affordable units that are included in that density. And there would be nothing stopping them from getting a builder's remedy to build just on what they own at that same density.
Just for the public's
Am I
edification,
correct,
they
Ron?
They
Am I
own
correct?
they own the Buddhist temple and the parking lot,
Did
right?
I say something incorrect?
No,
Ron?
you did not. They could
Okay.
build on the Buddhist temple
We-
parking
we're
lot, but they can't, they're
concluded
not going to
tonight.
put
We're now
315
concluded.
units on there. They don't own the
Thank
parking
you,
lot.
everyone,
They
for
don't
coming
own
out this evening.
They don't own the land under building A,
No,
they don't
this-
own the land under building B, and they don't own the
we
land
were
under building
here
C.
to answer your questions about the plan, the project in good faith. And, okay.
Thank you all. There'll be more opportunities for you to be heard. We said we were going to end half an hour ago. It's well past that as well. So thank you.
I was gonna say something nice about you guys.
that?
Too late, Kenny.
Say something nice.
I was gonna say, son of a bitch.
Okay.
I'm like,
Okay. Yeah, I know.